I was born in 1997 on a day that would become infamous only about 4 years later. To me, it was just my 4th birthday, and it always was my birthday, but you probably know it as 9/11. My parents rented a ski house, and if you've ever been skiing in a remote area, you know that past about 4 p.m. the mountain closes and there ain't much else to do. The only options were to watch movies, play with Legos or Hess trucks, or try to convince my sisters to help me build a snowman of epic proportions, things like that. This was what it was, until that fateful day when my family bought a PlayStation 1. Gone were the days of roleplay piloting a Hess Express, genociding an innocent village of Lego minifigs. And here were the days of stressing the f*** out, because for some reason my parents never thought to buy a memory card, and I was too young to understand what saving was. I played games like Abe's Exodus and Crash Bandicoot, unforgiving platformers with tons of character and tons of punishing difficulty. I was only 4 or 5 years old. I still remember the cutscenes from these games. Oddworld was one of the most creative universes I'd ever seen. Some of the best character designs and voice acting I've ever come across still. It was my introduction to the dark and macabre, but also consequences. These were my earliest experiences in what we now call nerd rage. In order to get the mass appeal of video games, companies had to resort to making games as easy as possible to rope in as many new people as they could with this new craze. Done were the days of consequences and lack of checkpoints every 5 seconds. Because what's the point if you just want to relax and play a game for 30 minutes to an hour if you're just going to lose all your progress? The concept of delayed gratification in video games was not attractive to most people. It kind of took the fun out of it. Enter the age of the PlayStation 2. Checkpoints every 5 seconds. No consequences for your actions. If you died, you can just respawn, do the same boss, do the same fight, do the same section of any game, and it didn't matter. That's how they roped you in. That's how video games became huge. Without it, I doubt they ever would have got as big as they did. They needed mass appeal. They needed to make people feel like they were good at the game, even if they were bad. Difficulty was driving the masses away. Kind of ironic with what we have with Dark Souls, Bloodborne, games like that now, which are massively popular and famous for their difficulty. My next experience with games were ones like Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, called these sort of mascot titles of the early 2000s. These games, with the exception of Jak 2, were very forgiving, very fun, had interesting characters and great stories to go along with it. Along with Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Aragorn, Frodo, Jak and Ratchet became my role models. The people I was supposed to be like. They had convictions, they had morals. They were the spitting image of what a hero could be, no matter where you came from or the circumstances of your birth. Catboy Lombax with a secret agent flying British lunchbox on your back, and nothing but a wrench to your name, you could still be the hero. Mute Beta Male, dropped back in time by his future self with a dark, eco-mutated bastard orange ferret with a personality equivalent to somewhere between Danny DeVito and Charlie's characters in Always Sunny? Yes, you could be the hero too. You could fulfill the prophecy, even with a moldy green father figure in the village thought to help you get started. I'll never forget that moment in Jak 2 where after a whole game of not speaking, Jak being tortured with Dark Eco says his first words he's ever said in the franchise. I'm gonna kill Praxis. The satisfaction of finally getting to hear our hero say something other than or was immeasurable. Shortly after, I was exposed to Knights of the Old Republic. BioWare slapped me so hard across the face with the concept of role-playing and player choice that I crawled back to them over and over again and begged them to please slap me again on the other side. But maybe that's a discussion for another day. So what happened? Why do we turn our PlayStation or Xbox on, scroll through the hundreds of games that we have, only to end up not choosing something, scrolling through our phones and letting the power save settings turn it off automatically? Yeah, Game Pass is great, it's a good value, and the PlayStation equivalent offers about the same, as well as 2 to 4 free games per month with PlayStation Plus. Sometimes AAA, other times a whole lot of garbage that wouldn't sell on its own. A few sleeper hits on the Game Pass and PS Plus as well. Is it because we're getting too old for video games? Are we just burned out from so much time to play due to the current state of the world? Or is something just missing from modern video games? Doom 2016 is an example of a game I had a lot of fun with, but kind of quickly forgot. Something about it just didn't really last in my memory. While it's insanely entertaining, it's got a good kind of gameplay loop, it's very overstimulating, and I can't help that think the excessive gore, big guns, and enormous set pieces are there to compensate for something that's missing from kind of all modern games, it seems. And that's character. I couldn't tell you much about the story of Doom, only that you play as a super overpowered demon slayer, destined to destroy basically all of hell with no consequences, no downfall, or hubris. The Doom Slayer doesn't have a voice, and that's not to say that an unvoiced protagonist can't have the same special character about them. Let's go back to Jak and Daxter, Fallout New Vegas, Knights of the Old Republic, and Fallout 4 as an example of a voiced protagonist that kind of everyone hated. It's not necessary if the game is still well written and inspired. And I think that right there is the issue. Gaming is $1 billion industry now, and every corporate money bag has their grubby little sausages all over every aspect of what gaming is now. For about 5 years, we were plagued by pay-to-win stores, loot box cancer, and DLC behind paywalls that you can't complete a coherent story without. I think we all remember games like EA's Battlefront 2, Shadow of War, completely taking back their pay-to-win systems after loads of outrage in an effort to gain back any semblance of their player base. The modern money hole game has switched in favor of the free game model with cosmetic microtransactions. Games like Fortnite have opted for a colorful, cartoony color palette to lure in younger demographics that are significantly more likely to hound mommy to buy them mass quantities of V-Bucks so they can buy the coolest new Spider-Man skin and avoid being called gay and being assaulted with chicken patties in the lunchroom for not having it. Can we really be surprised, though? Should we have expected video game corporate overlords to fully abandon milking a system that works? That gets little Timmy every time and gets his mom's credit card into their system? Not even just little Timmy, I'm 23 years old and I know some people my age that have spent more on in-game cosmetics than the game itself. At that point, it's your fault for not having your financial priorities straight, which is, kind of a Zoomer curse that they're taking advantage of. You think, well, the game's free, so what's wrong with spending just $20 on the Potleaf ghillie suit? I guess there's nothing wrong with it until you've dropped another 20 and another 20, and suddenly you've dropped over $100 on something useless, like a sexually deprived Supreme hype beast with no jawline. Because just like Supreme, these games could strap their name to a fucking brick and people would buy it. Instilling character, good writing, and just that wow factor isn't in the video game budget anymore. The original Mass Effect series is estimated to have a budget of $40 to $100 million per game. At that time, it's featured the top-of-the-line graphical potential, great writing, even the voice talents of Martin Sheen and Keith David. Each game nearly doubled sales in the previous title, making it a massive commercial success. They dropped the ball big time 5 years later with Mass Effect Andromeda, which I'm sure we all know about. With a budget of $76 million, the game just only rounded over that with an estimated $110 million in sales. To put it in perspective, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 had a massive budget of $250 million and sold $600 million in its opening weekend. Even with the free Warzone counterpart, God only knows how much in microtransaction and Battle Pass sales in addition. BioWare's core legend writers and developers were no longer involved, as Andromeda had been switched to a different studio since the original was working on the train wreck that eventually became the lifeless, soulless game Anthem. Remember that game? Yeah, me neither. Sequels to beloved franchises seem to not be working anymore. The corporations are so deep in video games now, we may never get character back in games again. Character just doesn't pay the bills. Even AAA commercial hits like Spider-Man, Doom, Jedi Fallen Order, Borderlands 3, Kingdom Hearts 3, they might be fun while you're playing them, but they so quickly fade from memory as shallow and forgettable. They're rated pretty well and they're generally received as good games, but they just don't have the sort of lasting referential potential like something like Jak and Daxter does. Even Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon just doesn't have the same sort of lasting oomph to it because it's just not special. It's just another AAA title that is extremely hype and just disappears like as the time goes by. But that being said, do I have any hope for video games? Absolutely. The occasional masterpiece still punches me in the face, with God of War 2018 being the most recent and the last I can remember having such an impact. I simply think that masterpiece potential is less likely today based on what's selling and what's trending. Shallow is unfortunately selling. Complex, character-driven narrative stories are not. If you're anything like me, you probably find yourself going back to 10-year-old games with clunky controls or cheesable AI. It's because no amount of frames per second, no amount of neon lights or dynamic weather modules can fix a shallow experience. And I won't deny the appeal of the Battle Royale or shooter title. I enjoy them on my own time. I play all the Call of Duties when they come out. There's few feelings like winning against 100 people in a cross-platform lobby, be it through a few lucky headshots or some kind of crazy big brain strategy. The dopamine hit gets me out of my chair screaming, "Let's go!" and gets me back in the queue to chase the dragon for yet another hit. Yet every time I play the game, I find myself saying, wow, I fucking hate this game. Why is that? It's just doesn't have the same feel. It's just not as, I don't know, it just doesn't have the same feel as the old games do. Most of the best games came out 10 years ago. And I feel like these Battle Royale games or multiplayer games are just designed so it makes you feel like you're good at the game and kind of gives you just enough wins to make you come back and think, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this game, and gets you playing it and buying the battle pass every season. And yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I'm into that stuff. I play it and I enjoy the social aspect of it. And you know, it's hard to find an old game or some sort of inspired multiplayer game to really enjoy with your friends. But man, you can always play Call of Duty and just enjoy the socializing with your friends. And I think that's why I'm still playing it, but that's really the only reason. So I think with many other people, will be patiently waiting for that game that really hits like something like Fallout New Vegas or Knights of the Old Republic does, or Jak and Daxter or old school Ratchet and Clank. But till then, it looks like I'm stuck playing a bunch of crappy AAA games. Anyways, guys, hope this wasn't too negative for you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to hit that like button or subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. I've been Wes, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace.